thought I was helping my son's family because that was what mothers did. I never expected that one quiet conversation at their front door would make me step back from their lives and never look at our relationship the same way again. The front door of Nathan's split-level house in Madison did not open fully. Madeline stood in the 4-inch gap, her hand resting firmly against the white painted trim. Behind her, the warm smell of pot roast drifted into the chilly Tuesday afternoon air, carried past the porch, where I stood holding 2 insulated containers of vegetable soup. "Mom? Your family? But I don't want you to come here anymore," Madeline said. Her voice remained quiet, perfectly steady, and devoid of anger. She adjusted the sleeve of her gray cardigan. "It disrupts our weekly rhythm when you stop by without 2 days of advance notice. We need our own space to build our household routine." I looked at the brass house numbers beside the doorbell. Nathan's car sat in the paved driveway behind my Subaru, the engine ticking as it cooled down after his commute from the municipal water department. Through the front bay window, 6-year-old Toby sat on the living room rug, building a wooden bridge. "I brought the vegetable soup you asked Nathan about yesterday," I replied evenly. "We ordered takeout instead." Madeline said, her eyes neither hard nor apologetic. "Nathan forgot to text you. Leave the containers on the patio bench, please. We will eat dinner as a private family unit tonight." I did not raise my voice, nor did I demand that Nathan come to the porch. I had driven 30 minutes from my home near Lake Kagansa, just as I had done every Tuesday for 3 years, to help with laundry and evening childcare. Instead of setting the glass containers on the wooden bench where the autumn wind would cool them, I set them back inside my canvas tote bag. I pulled the strap over my wool coat, looked Madeline straight in the eyes, and gave a brief nod. "Enjoy your dinner," I said, turning toward the gravel walkway. The drive back to my brick cottage felt quieter than usual. For 4 decades, I worked as a head librarian at the county system, cataloging resources, managing schedules, and observing human behavior from behind circulation desks. Patterns always revealed themselves if a person paid attention. Tuesday had not been an isolated incident of stress or bad timing. Last month, Madeline asked me to hem 4 pairs of heavy blackout curtains for their upstairs bedrooms. I spent 2 full afternoons measuring linen and running the fabric through my Singer sewing machine. When I delivered them folded neatly, Madeline merely pointed toward the hallway closet without looking up from her laptop. 2 days later, she told Nathan that older fabrics held too much dust and replaced 2 sets with online purchases. 3 weeks ago, Nathan called asking if I could take Toby to his pediatric dental checkup because his own project meeting ran late. I rearranged my volunteer shift at the Botanical Conservatory, drove Toby across town, bought his favorite sugar-free fruit popsicles, and returned him with clean teeth. Madeline's only remark, when she returned from her real estate office, was that I should not have allowed Toby to sit in the front seat, even though he sat securely in his booster chair in the back. I carried my canvas tote into my bright kitchen. The electric refrigerator hummed softly in the corner. I unpacked the hot glass containers, labeled each lid with masking tape and black marker, and stacked them neatly inside the bottom freezer drawer. Nathan's text arrived at 8 in the evening. "Sorry about earlier, Mom." Madeline was overwhelmed after a long listing presentation. "Thanks for understanding." I read the screen under the warm glow of the kitchen pendant lamp. I did not type an explanation, nor did I ask why he remained silent behind the door. I put the phone face down on the granite counter. On Thursday morning, Nathan called while I was pruning the potted geraniums on my sun porch. His voice carried the rushed cadence of someone trying to solve 3 logistical problems before his morning staff meeting. "Mom, Madeline has an open house this Saturday from noon until 4. He said, his words competing with the sound of his office coffee maker. "Can you take Toby to his soccer practice at 12:30 and keep him until 5? We can drop him off at your place around 11. In the past, I would have cleared my entire Saturday morning to bake cinnamon rolls and prepare the guest bedroom with Toby's picture books. I set the copper shears on the potting table. "I have plans this Saturday, Nathan," I said smoothly. "I will not be available." There was a noticeable pause on the line. Nathan cleared his throat twice. You usually don't have anything on Saturday afternoons. Did the library call you for a book sale shift? I joined the weekend walking group at the Arboretum, I replied, looking out over my backyard where the maples were turning amber. We walk at 1 o'clock, and afterward, I am having tea with Evelyn. Madeline planned the whole weekend around you watching him. Nathan said, a slight edge of irritation entering his tone. She already confirmed the showing appointments with her broker. Then she will need to arrange for a neighborhood sitter, or you will need to attend the soccer match yourself, I said, without hesitation. Give Toby a hug for me. I ended the call before the conversation could circle back to excuses. I walked into my study, opened my desktop calendar, and wrote my new schedule in dark ink. For the first time in years, Tuesday and Saturday blocks remained completely blank open for whatever life I chose to construct. On Monday afternoon, I drove to the local hardware store on Monona Drive to buy weather stripping for my front storm door. The retired shopkeeper Walter helped me select the proper silicone adhesive. As I carried the package toward the register, I heard familiar voices near the lawn care aisle. Madeline stood near the fertilizer displays, talking to an older woman from her neighborhood association. Her voice carried clearly over the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights. It is simply about efficiency, Madeline was saying with an airy chuckle. If you let extended family set their own visiting hours, you lose control of your house. It is much easier to manage schedules when you treat assistance as a formal service, rather than an open-door policy. Doesn't Nathan's mother live just down the road? The neighbor asked. Yes, but Nathan knows how to handle it, Madeline replied smoothly. She will adjust once she realizes we have our own priorities. She has plenty of free time anyway. I did not step behind a shelf or alter my pace. I walked directly past the aisle toward the cash register with my silicone strips and brass wood screws. Madeline turned her eyes, widening slightly as our gazes met across the display rack of garden hoses. She adjusted the strap of her leather purse, waiting to see if I would approach or demand an explanation. I simply offered a polite, distant nod, the exact same courtesy I extended to strangers at the grocery store checkout, and placed my items on the black conveyor belt. I handed the cashier my debit card, collected my receipt, and walked out into the bright autumn sunlight. Sitting in my car, I tapped my fingers against the steering wheel. She did not view my presence as family support. She viewed my availability as an entitlement that required no reciprocation or respect. On Wednesday, I spent the morning reviewing my household binder. When my husband Richard passed away 7 years ago, he left our finances organized and clear. The house was paid in full, my municipal pension provided steady security, and my life was entirely self-contained. The only thing tethering me to Nathan's daily logistics was the spare brass key sitting on my silver key ring. 3 years ago, Nathan gave me that key so I could let the furnace repairman into their basement while they worked. Over time, I used it to drop off dry cleaning water their patio ferns when they visited Lake Geneva, and leave warm casseroles in their refrigerator. I picked up the small silver pliers from my toolbox in the pantry. With a steady turn of the wrist, I separated the brass key from my ring. It fell onto the wooden table with a sharp, definitive click. I walked to the kitchen and took a standard white mailing envelope from the desk drawer. I did not write a long letter filled with grievances, accusations, or memories of raising Nathan alone after Richard's illness. I wrote a single sentence on a plain note card, returning the house key to honor your need for privacy. I placed the brass key inside, sealed the adhesive flap, and added a $5 bill with a note for Toby to buy an ice cream cone at the school fair. I drove to the downtown post office, dropped the envelope into the blue collection box outside, and watched the metal chute swing shut. Standing on the sidewalk beneath the crisp Wisconsin sky, a sudden sense of physical lightness settled over my shoulders. The obligation to be on standby had vanished completely into the postal system. By the second week of November, my days settled into a new, uninterrupted rhythm. I restored the antique walnut desk in my guest room, turning the space into a quiet reading room overlooking the garden. I signed up for a bi-weekly watercolor workshop at the community center and volunteered 3 mornings a week cataloging rare local history maps at the university archive. Nathan called on Thursday evening while I was sketching the outline of an oak branch on heavy paper. "Mom, did you really mail the key back?" he asked, his voice strained. "Madeline showed me the envelope yesterday." "Yes," I said, dipping my paintbrush into clear water. "You both made it clear that unannounced access and flexible visits do not work for your family. Holding a key to a home where I am not welcome makes no practical sense." "She didn't mean you could never step foot in the house again," Nathan argued, though his tone lacked conviction. "She just wanted clear boundaries. You don't have to take it so drastically." "I am not upset, Nathan. I am simply respecting what was asked of me," I replied evenly. "Clear boundaries work in both directions." "Well, we were hoping you could watch Toby next Tuesday night," he muttered, shifting the phone. "We have tickets to the Symphony Gala with Madeline's agency partners. Sitter rates downtown are $40 an hour now. I have my watercolor class every Tuesday evening from 6 to 8:30, I said, without missing a beat. "You will need to book a sitter early so you aren't late for your dinner." There was a long silence on the line. For years, I had dropped whatever book I was reading to accommodate their social calendar. "Okay," Nathan said quietly. "I guess we will figure something else out." "Good night, Nathan." I laid the brush across the ceramic rest. Thanksgiving approached with the usual flurry of neighborhood grocery runs and early morning frost on the grass. Traditionally, I hosted the holiday dinner, spending 3 days roasting turkey, preparing cornbread stuffing, and polishing Richard's grandmother's silver service for 8 people. On the Sunday before the holiday, Nathan arrived at my house alone. He stood on the front porch with his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, looking smaller than his 34 years. "Can I come in, Mom?" he asked, shifting his weight. "Of course," I said, opening the door and leading him into the kitchen where a pot of black tea was brewing. He sat at the wooden table, running his thumb over the grain of the oak. "Madeline thought it would be easier if we hosted Thanksgiving at our place this year. Her parents are flying in from Scottsdale, and she wants to keep Toby in his own routine." I poured 2 ceramic mugs of tea and set one in front of him. "That sounds like a sensible arrangement for her parents." "Great," Nathan said, exhaling with visible relief. "So we figured you could come over around 10 in the morning to help Madeline prep the turkey and sides, and then bring your pumpkin pies and the silver serving platters like usual." I sat down opposite him and took a slow sip of tea. "I won't be doing that, Nathan." Nathan blinked his mug, paused halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "You always make the pies and bring the platters." Madeline stated clearly that having me in her home disrupts your household flow, I said calmly. "I will not come into her kitchen at 10 in the morning to work as domestic help for an event hosted for her family." Nathan's face flushed red. He set his mug down hard enough to rattle the saucer. "Mom, this is getting ridiculous. You're turning a simple boundary conversation into a permanent grudge. Madeline is my wife. I have to support her in our own home. You absolutely should support your wife, Nathan," I answered, keeping my voice firm and grounded. "Just as you must accept the natural consequences of the choices you support." "She was just trying to manage her stress," he said, standing up from the chair. "You're acting like she threw you out onto the street. Now you're refusing to spend Thanksgiving with your only grandson." "I am spending Thanksgiving with my sister Claire in Duluth," I replied, looking up at him with steady eyes. "I booked my train ticket 2 weeks ago. Toby and I had ice cream at the park yesterday after his school let out, and I gave him his holiday book. He knows his grandmother loves him." Nathan stared at me, his hands opening and closing at his sides. He was accustomed to my compliance to the quiet mother who smoothed over rough edges, covered his schedule gaps, and absorbed subtle dismissals with polite smiles. "You're really going to Minnesota?" he asked, the reality finally puncturing his defensive posture. "Claire's house." "Yes." Claire and I will cook together, walk by the lake, and enjoy an uncomplicated weekend, I said. Nathan walked toward the front door, his shoulders slumped. He paused with his hand on the doorknob, waiting for me to soften to offer a container of baked goods, or to promise I would drive over early on Friday instead. I stood by the kitchen island, hands folded loosely in front of my apron. Drive carefully on the belt line, Nathan. The temperature is dropping. Thanksgiving in Duluth was brisk, peaceful, and filled with old stories and laughter. When I returned to Madison on Monday, winter had firmly arrived, coating the pines in heavy white snow. 2 weeks later, on a snowy Saturday afternoon, my front doorbell rang. Through the glass sidelight, I saw Nathan, Madeline, and Toby standing on the porch, wrapped in heavy winter parkas. Toby held a red construction paper drawing in his mitten. I opened the front door wide enough to stand in the threshold, keeping the storm door closed against the cold air. "Hi, Mom," Nathan said, his breath fogging in the wind. We were driving back from the shopping center. We brought some bakery pastries. We thought we'd come in, have coffee, and let Toby show you his school art project. Madeline looked at me from beneath her wool beanie. Her usual polished, detached demeanor was replaced by a visible weariness. The absence of my reliable childcare and household assistance over the past 6 weeks had clearly shifted the balance of their busy schedules. "It is good to see you, Toby," I said, through the screen, smiling at my grandson. Then I looked directly at Madeline. "You are welcome to come in for 30 minutes, Madeline," I said clearly and without rancor. "But moving forward, we will agree on visits 2 days in advance, exactly as you requested of me in October. My time and my home operate under the very same structure you require for yours." Madeline held my gaze for several seconds. The realization settled in there would be no emotional breakdown, no passive-aggressive retaliation, and no return to unpaid servitude. "That is entirely fair," Georgia Madeline said quietly. 2 days in advance. "May we come in for 20 minutes today?" "You may," I said, stepping aside and pushing open the glass door. The visit was brief, polite, and orderly. We drank coffee from Richard's ceramic mugs. Toby explained his drawing of a blue snowplow, and Madeline sat on the sofa without attempting to inspect or manage the room. When 25 minutes passed, Nathan checked his watch, helped Toby zip his coat, and walked toward the foyer without prompting. "Thank you for the coffee," Georgia Madeline said at the front entrance, offering a genuine, measured smile. "I will text you on Wednesday to see if you are free for Toby's holiday concert on Friday evening." "Thank you, Madeline. I will check my calendar and let you know," I replied. After the sound of their SUV faded down the snowy street, I washed the 3 coffee mugs in hot, soapy water, dried them with a clean linen towel, and placed them back in the cabinet. My life had not diminished. It had simply rearranged itself into honest proportions. I was no longer the invisible pillar holding up someone else's convenience at the expense of my own self-respect. Nathan was learning that adulthood required managing his own household without treating his mother as an on-call utility. Madeline learned that boundaries were a two-way street that protected everyone equally. I walked into the sun porch, where the winter sun cast long, pale beams across my drawing table. I picked up my charcoal pencil and continued working on the landscape sketch of the frozen lake. The house was quiet, warm, and entirely my own. I was still a mother, and I was still a grandmother. But above all, I was an independent woman, standing firmly on her own ground, welcoming family only when mutual consideration opened the door.